Welcome to Tavern Archery, where our day on the archery field, we come to the tavern, sit down, grab a pint, and talk about all things target archery. Prost.
They long had shot so well, and no wonder, for truly they spend time gathered here. They spend time gathered here in Tavern Archery.
We're back in the tavern today with Master Colum Maxwell, the Deputy Earl Marshal for Target Archery for the Kingdom of Atlantia. And today, Master Colum's going to spend a few moments talking about his archer's toolkit that he takes to each archery event.
Hello, this is Master Colum Maxwell, and I've been asked to show you what's in my go to archery events kit. And I just throw it in the truck, I bring it, and I have it if I need it. I have some things in there to help people, teaching aids, different things. Some things you may want to put in your kit, some things you may not want, some things I may not have that you do. So it's just kind of a guideline. But at a minimum, when you go to an event, when you're going to shoot archery, especially if you're competing, you want to have a bowstring that's extra, and you want to have an arrow or two that's extra, like 6 or 12 would be great. Because if you end up in a shoot-off, if you break a couple arrows, occasionally we've been to events where the arrows get lost very easily, and you can easily find yourself with 5 arrows in a 6-arrow shoot. So extra arrows help. But the extra bowstring, the way you treat a bowstring is, as your bowstring begins to wear, you buy a new bowstring or you make a new bowstring, and then you shoot it in. You put it on the bow, you trade out the strings, you shoot it in for a while. Then you take your old bowstring, and that becomes your spare bowstring. And the reason for that is because you have to shoot in your bowstring. You have to stretch it, you have to determine the proper nocking point, get it to the right length for the brace height, everything. So by having that in advance done, you don't find yourself shooting a brand new bowstring because your old one broke, and suddenly it stretches and you can't figure out why your arrows aren't going where they want. So extra bowstring and extra arrows are what I consider a minimum. If you have an extra bow, that's always good. Throw it in the car and in case something happens to your bow, but that's a very, very rare occurrence. So bowstring and arrows, and that's the minimum. And then everything else kind of helps other people. So let's get started. I'll show you what I've got in my kit and how it's loaded and how I carry it and all that kind of thing. So you'll see what I do. People ask what I carry in my kit for a archery kit for going to events, and this is pretty much it. It's a small tackle box, fits anywhere, doesn't take up a lot of room, and has 2 small compartments. I keep a small sharp knife in that side, and I keep a pen and pencil in the other side. When you open it up, you end up with 2 shelves with various compartments and a larger storage compartment underneath. And then I'll load it back up and explain what everything is. One of the first things I put in is a stringer. An extra stringer in case someone needs one, doesn't have one. I'll always have that there. The next thing, I start loading up the bottom, and I have a teaching aid, which is called a 4-master. It's basically 2 straps and a string that attaches to your bowstring and then to your forearm, to your elbow, and can teach a person whether or not they're using back tension, and a couple other things. Another teaching aid I have is simply a string that you can stretch out and use to teach back tension, use to teach your form, all kinds of things. It's a very useful little tool. And that just plops in there. I carry a arrow puller in case I need one. And this is empty right now, but it's a string holder, keeps it nice and in shape. I put one in for whatever bow I might be carrying. especially if I'm going on a camping trip. I'll put one in there so I have an extra string. And then another useful tool which goes in the top is my Leatherman. And of course it has the pliers, it has all kinds of tools inside, and that can be invaluable. And in case someone doesn't have one, I have an extra glove. It's a little too small for me, which means it fits most people, especially younger people. They can use that. And I carry, just for me, a tab that is not so useful for most people because it's left-handed. That's what the L means, not large. And then the next thing I have in here is I carry materials to make strings. I don't carry a string board usually because you don't really have to have one, but for a Flemish string you can figure out how to measure it yourself. B55 you see, 450 plus, and another fast flight. So 2 fast flights and a B55. B55 is for older bows that can't take fast flight. Because of its stretching, it doesn't break nocks. If you use fast flight on a real old bow, you're liable to break the tips of your bow. That's always considered a bad thing. The next thing I have for string making, I carry wax. Now I carry lots of wax because people always want to borrow it. Sometimes they forget to return it. I've probably forgotten to return somebody's wax sometime, although of course you try to. But it's not, doesn't cost that much. I can let them have it. I have some for myself. I also carry, for me, a couple string silencers if I'm making a new string. Something to do sitting around camp at night. Those can go in there. And then I carry a couple different serving jigs. These work real well, and they work a little different, but they're both useful for making strings. And then once we've got the string made, we need to put a nocking point on it. I have nocking pliers. I normally have 2 or 3 different sizes of nocks for people to use, but people have used them and I just haven't got around to replacing them yet. And just for in case somebody wants to know, I carry a thumb ring that I can show them how it's used, even though I don't use it very well myself. And I also carry the fletching tape in case someone needs to if they have their own fletches, I can use it to refletch their arrows. If they don't have any arrow for feathers and they need some feathers, I've got some 2.5 inch feathers in a basic shape that I can use. Now what with these I've done is I put fletching tape on them already, so all I have to do is peel it off and stick it on where the old feather was. And that fits in there. And then I have a few feathers for me. Same thing, put the fletching tape on them, makes them fast and easy to use. And they just live in the top compartments by themselves. If I'm need to re-tip or tip arrows, I've got taper tools in 5/16 and 11/32. And if I'm going to put tips on or nocks on, I carry a few 5/16 classic index nocks. It's a basic nock, has a little thumb finder kind of, so you can tell where the cock feather is without having to look at it. But I carry those. They sit in their little compartment. Then of course I carry classic index nocks that I use in 11/32. And those sit in their little compartment. And for both feathers and for nocks, of course, I have some Duco Cement that I carry with me. For tips, I carry a few in a couple different weights. 5/16 Nocks or tips and field points. So those can sit in their own compartment. And for larger arrows, I carry 125 grain 11/32 tips that I can re-tip arrows with. And then just for fun, I carry a few miscellaneous tips. This one is a judo point. It has little wires. If it hits the ground and it doesn't usually bury because those wires catch on the grass, on the leaves, and keep it on top. Blunts for hitting stuff that you want to bounce off of, and of course a couple whistling arrows that I can just re-tip those. I've got the stuff for them. If I wanted to re-tip an arrow, I carry a Zippo and a butane lighter that is almost like a little torch, because that's the name of it, is mag torch. And in case I want to change tips out or melt off a Nock or anything, I've got those ready. Then I also carry, of course, some hot melt glue for putting tips on. I carry a couple different things here. This is for putting rests on. I have a brush rest that sits up and raises your arrow. I have a piece of Velcro that I can use. I can trim all these, of course, and I have a piece of leather I can trim to shape and glue on using the Duco or whatever. And I also have a feather rest, which I use on my target bows. So if someone needed a feather rest, I've got one of those. So I just carry those in case someone needs something. And if we're checking on bows, I carry a couple biter blocks. Biter blocks sit on the riser, clip on, and your string, if your limb is straight, your string will line up between these two lines, and it's just a kind of an aid to tuning your bow. And lastly, I carry a long piece of string. That's in case someone has something with really poofy sleeves, they keep hitting their sleeves, they need to tie them up. I've got some string to do that with. And then the last thing I carry is a bow scale. A lot of times people have bows. For example, I have a bow marked 62, but it only pulls 56. Without this, you might not know that. And people like to know what they're pulling at their draw length. When you see a bow that says 35 pounds, it usually means it's 35 pounds if you draw it 28 inches. If you draw less than that, it's less than that weight, and if you draw more, then it's more than that weight. So you can draw this to your anchor point, and you can tell what you're actually drawing on your bow. And that's pretty much it. It's a very, very quick and easy kit. Doesn't take up any room, and it can save somebody shooting and help yourself out as well. So there may be some things you have that you like that I don't have. I may have some things you don't like or need or want, but overall it works pretty well. So I hope that helps somebody, and hope to see everybody on the range.